I look very tired. My hair looks a little insane. I don't know what's going on here. I've tried to tame the flick. The flick wants to stay, so we're just gonna move past that. Today, we are continuing what I have now deemed the cardathon. And the cardathon has consisted of me making brand new greeting cards, however you say it, card designs for the sake of selling some online, which I have started. My Etsy shop is now live for anyone that's interested, and also primarily for wholesale use. Wholesale is a goal of mine as far as like business goals, like an area that I really am interested in getting into. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. I'm gonna flash up on the screen. This is my card page of my line sheet. I blocked out the prices for you guys because it's not relevant. But as you can see, there's a big heckin' gap. uh, I had these three beep, boop, boop, designs already. Um, well, I say already. I had the gorilla and the heart from previous retailer experiences that I had gone through. The crocodile card, you would have seen me making this from start to finish pretty much in my most recent Just Studio vlog. You would have also seen the dramas I went through to get these printed on time for my shop update in my last video as well. Just for another example for you, you would have also seen me starting and not finishing this card here. And this card, I started it, I did all the bulk of the work, like putting things in place, and then I totally lost interest in it. I don't know why. I think I had a lot going on, and the whole Etsy thing was sort of putting pressure on me a bit. But yeah, essentially, this is now done. And by the time this video is up, if you follow me on Instagram and stuff, you might have seen the colored version here. We're following suit. These are examples of the kind of gist of what we're going for. We're going for kind of stupid or a little bit dark humored or wordplay kind of stuff. And today I'm going to be taking this very boring mystery card from Amazon from some really generic brand that I got like a pack of 200 2 years ago. Ooh. Ooh. It's 350 GSM. It's just your standard white, smooth, no texture card. And we're going to be doing a bunch of drawing today. Theme for today is King Cheetah, which is one of my favourite big cats. They have mohawks. The mohawk is not going to be very prominent in this. So I'm going to go away, do the boring part of the sketch, and then I'll be right back and we can start inking. All my drawings nowadays start off with a pencil sketch. At the moment I am exclusively using Papermate brand mechanical pencils. Get them in a pack of 20. You know, they last forever. The erasers are particularly good. And yeah, I've been using them for years now. They do the job, but you can use any mechanical pencil. I just like the precision of them. I'm also using 2 micron fine liners, Pigma micron ones, for this entire drawing. I like how the contrast between a very heavy outline and very, very fine detail for like hair looks when it comes to pen and ink drawings. So in this case, you can kind of build up depth between the 0.05, which is the finest one that you can get, and the 0.8, which is, you know, pretty much as big as you can go before just being a straight up marker pen. Particularly for creating tone and shape, you can bulk up that 0.05 a lot to sort of create middle grounds between the two. I think it tends to look better than just straight up going in with like a 0.5 or like even a 0.1, to be honest. I've also changed how I am doing black spots on big cats. I did briefly touch on this in a previous video that I did ages and ages and ages ago. I used to spend ages with the finest pen, doing every little hairline, every this, every that, and building it up and building it up and building it up, and it would take forever. And in all honesty, it doesn't look vastly different from how I'm doing them now. Now I'm just going in with my fattest pen, blocking it in, doing it a bit scratchily, a bit scribbly, and then I will go in later on and soften up all the edges with my finest one. And it does exactly the same thing, but it takes about half of the time to do. When I'm coming up with ideas for drawings, I get a lot of inspiration from different places. It's not kind of like one set thing for me. More often than not, I'll sit on an idea like this one for a few months before I actually go ahead and do it. I can't remember what it was exactly that sort of set me off for this. I think I was generally thinking about cards, and I was trying to think of ones that were like subtly a bit evil, like this. Like the idea that this cheetah has maybe gone off and done something not great to a zebra to get this hat, but it's not obvious until you start thinking about it. But I had this like months ago, sitting on the back burner, and I finally got around to doing it, and I'm really pleased with it. When I was trying to decide what animal I was actually going to do wearing the hat, it was a bit more decisive than I had an idea for a stupid animal in a hat sort of thing. I'm trying to incorporate more endangered species into my work. Even for projects like this where it's not so blatantly in your face like, this is an endangered animal kind of stuff. Just because it's something that's really important to me. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and I think if I can, why wouldn't I, you know? The king cheetah, for instance, is one of the world's most endangered cats. Them and the Amur leopard, which I've talked about before, are in the top 5 for sure. So instead of doing what my original plan was to be a lion, I was like, why not? You know, I think as well the idea of spots and stripes sort of came to mind. You know, it's two sort of contrasting patterns as well that kind of go together, and it's very graphic, which is really good for a card. When I'm sort of planning out how I'm going to draw things, this is sort of a bit of a tangent from what I was just on about. I am constantly thinking about how I'm going to edit them. So if it was for a manual drawing where I'm going to be colouring it myself sort of in person and not digitally, it's very different because I'm working around what I'm going to be colouring it later. You know, like how I'm going to do it. Is it with pen? Is it with paint? You know, whatever it may be. In this case, I started blocking in a lot of very dark areas and leaving a lot of white where I was going to put highlights later on. When you're doing this sort of half and half method that I do, and a lot of other artists do, this works particularly well because it means that when you're laying down your shadows with colour, it's emphasised by the marks you've already made. When you're making highlights, they look exceptionally bright, almost unrealistically bright, because there's not a lot of tat underneath them, you know? I think when I was younger and when I started drawing in this way, I was,
how do I explain this? Force of habit became almost putting too much detail in, which seems a little stupid to say considering how much detail I've already put in this. But what I would do was I would get the sort of almost OCD need to cover every single piece of the page with ink. A really hot tip for people that are maybe starting out drawing in this way is the space between your lines is just as important as the lines themselves. I think that's the difference between having something with really solid form and something that looks really flat. You're creating contrasts and highlights to make an optical illusion essentially with any drawing, particularly with pen and ink. And I like my stuff to be able to stand on its own in black and white or in colour, and that is something I find very important. It also, like I said before, really, really helps when you're editing stuff on Photoshop or whatever software you want to use. On top of that, if nothing else, it kind of reminds me where everything is. Like, it's like a roadmap, you know, it's like, it becomes almost a colouring in sheet by the time I hit Photoshop, you know. These gaps as well can create huge amounts of texture, they can create lumps where physically there are none because at the end of the day, it's a flat sheet of paper. I've been asked on multiple occasions what my favourite things are to draw. People always assume I'm going to say birds or cats or whatever, but it's actually teeth and eyeballs. Not fussy on the animal they belong to, whether it's a human or otherwise, but it's just something about making things look alive that I find extremely rewarding. This is another example of creating depth where there might not be any physically, using those two different pen depths that I talked about earlier. I think it's probably the most effective in this whole drawing on the stupid zebra hat, and particularly on this pom-pom. Doing the inside very, very fine like this, and then giving it a hard edge, makes it stand out so it's a separate entity from the cheetah itself, but it also creates a sort of tonal layer that would be very hard to achieve otherwise. And the finishing touch, put in endless little hairs and things. I freehandle my whiskers, I do not draw guidelines for them because I think they just come out looking more natural this way.
So there you have it. That's the finished drawing. Really pleased with it overall. I mean, I've managed to cram a lot of detail into there. Very pleased with that. Even for things that I'm doing that are quite small, so for instance, these are going to be about this size when they're printed, so you know, he's going to be probably about that sort of size face wise or whatever on a final card. I'm trying to keep the level of intricacy the same, you know, throughout all my work, so I'm trying not to, what's the word I'm looking for? Like cop out on detail just because it's going on a card. You know, and I think I've managed to do a pretty good job of it. I'm going to go away and edit this. We'll do some sexy final shots for you. I'm not going to show you guys any Photoshop stuff at the moment because I've been trying OBS Studio again, which is what I used to use with my desktop computer that I had in Sydney for recording. For some reason, it makes my Mac want to explode. So if you guys have any suggestions for like screen recording for editing and like Photoshop montages and stuff, please do let me know because I'm struggling to find an alternative. I am going to try and use the just Photoshop screen recording stuff, but I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. I'm using a MacBook. not like the highest end one, but yeah, let me know and enjoy these final shots.